Hello and welcome to the Lewiston Tribune Podcast. This is episode number 63. I'm Matt Baney, managing editor of the Tribune, joined today by Elaine Williams, the Tribune's business editor and City of Lewiston reporter. Elaine, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
And we're going to talk about, Elaine had a very nice story in the paper a couple days ago about a building that we all know. It's had many names over the years. It was the Methodist Church. It was the Lewiston Civic Theater. It was the Bollinger Performing Arts Center. And now it's called the Castle, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I believe wasn't it the Anne Bollinger Performing Arts
That's it.
Center?
That's the full name, yes. I guess, Elaine, if you can, maybe give us a little bit of the background from the last how we got here. Maybe just a quick sketch of how we ended up where we're at now.
Okay, so I'm just going to take us back to 2021 because that seems like a pivotal moment. At that stage, this building was condemned, and the city of Lewiston had estimated that the repairs were going to cost close to $1 million. And then additionally, the city was considering or was pursuing estimates for demolition. Keep in mind at that stage, the city owned the building. And I don't think that anyone would ever argue that the building that used to house the Lewiston Civic Theater or the castle is anything other than an architectural marvel. And it has extraordinary value to the community for all of the roles that it served in the community over the years. It was a Methodist church, so people were married there, people went to Sunday school there. Then it became the Civic Theater, and there were plays and musicals performed there. And I know for me, I attended many of those productions and just have some fabulous memories of family and friends attending these productions and seeing them performed by people that we knew in just incredibly great ways. So I just want to make sure that the context of this conversation is that people value this building in a variety of ways. But that said, the city had fair reasons for looking at potentially demolishing it because of the cost of the repairs, the questions about if they made the repairs, would they be able to find any way to cover the ongoing costs of any building that's more than a century old? And then additionally, the city has lots of competing needs, right down to at this stage, there's some incredibly important repairs that need to happen with downtown
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure that the downtown infrastructure, which not only serves downtown, but it serves large sections of the city. So the city has lots of competing needs for its revenue. So in that broader picture, it's understandable that the city was looking for the potential or looking at the potential of demolishing this building. Enter our good friend Myron Gemmer, who was able to acquire the building from the city in March of 2024 and has now completed a very, very important initial phase of renovations.
And Myron bought it back in 2024, and uh, we had attempted to get in touch with him to find out what he was doing, and you finally did end up chatting with Myron, and it sounds like it was a very illuminating thing. Tell us about your visit with Myron and your visit to what Myron's now calling the castle.
Well, one of the really, really interesting things about our interview, there were so many things that were interesting about our interview, but one of the first mysteries that was solved in that interview was why we hadn't heard a lot from Myron. And there were two reasons. One is he purposely has tried to stay under the radar since he acquired the building. He was actually surprised when his purchase of the building was news in our newspaper. Uh, and the other kind of overlapping thing that was happening is that Myron has some illnesses, including Parkinson's, and so right around the time that he purchased the building, he was having some symptoms related to the illnesses that he's been diagnosed with. That slowed the process. And then another thing he shared was that it took him a lot of time to think about what approach he was going to take to fix the extreme structural issues that the building has. And
Hmm.
those problems are extreme. Uh, one of the uh, the trusses, it's called a girder truss. There's two of them, and this is part of a system of about 12 trusses. But the girder trusses are two of the ones that bear the most weight. And one of them, when he acquired the building, it was hanging about a foot and a half below where it should. And these girder trusses, they look a little bit like the side of a bridge. And so the beam on the bottom of one of these girder trusses, the beam is about 70 feet long, and about a third of that was just damaged beyond repair. So one of the first things that Myron had to do was figure out how to get this girder, or excuse me, get this truss back into place, and then um, also repair the beam on the bottom of that. It took him quite a bit of time to think through that solution, and but he and his crew started doing a lot of things to the building on a fairly regular basis. This spring, they've succeeded in repairing the truss, and then they've also redone the entire roof. So the building is sturdy. It's passed city inspections. So there's been a lot of progress that's been made.
I was going to say that's kind of remarkable. It seems to me, tell me if this is right, the city, it seemed like you had some stories from city council meetings where they were maybe one more meeting away from saying, that's it, we're pulling the plug, we're going to demolish this, right?
Oh, I completely agree. And once again, I think everyone agrees that this building is a gem, but and that's, I guess, why we're so lucky that Myron has found it, because it's something that it seems to me like it's a little bit of a hobby to him. It's it's a little bit of solving a puzzle. I'm thinking of a puzzle that I'm working on at home, that it's a Van Gogh and it's a Starry Night, and there's all these different shades of blue, and I have yet to finish solving it. But even though it's challenging, it brings me joy. And so a little bit, I mean, they're not, these two things are not nearly on the same scale, but I feel like a little bit like with Myron, what he's calling the castle has some elements of that. And with that, he seems to have the intellect to be able to figure it out. And I think that's a pretty rare thing for someone whose interest in this coincides with the skills that he has,
Hmm.
just based on the fact that the city has approved what he's done structurally with the building. So once again, I think the community is pretty lucky at this stage of where the work is right now.
And he did a lot of this with a pretty small crew, right?
Oh, exactly. It was just a handful of people, and they did much of it by hand. And part of that was just because they had to be so careful, because this is a building that I keep going back to. It's more than 100 years
Yeah.
old, and there were all kinds of challenges they described. There's within the building now, there is this network of walkways and stairs that they installed, that if you are above the ceiling, you can see them. and they're there so that the crew could access different places. But uh, it was a job in and of itself, just figuring out where to put these walkways, how to install them without anyone getting hurt, and then how to install them without damaging anything in the building. So there's just been all these different things that have had to happen and in all kinds of different ways. So it's really pretty incredible what's happened so far.
Yeah. Um, More work to do, though.
Yes.
What other kinds of improvements or updates or does Myron and the crew have to do there?
Well, I'm sure that everybody who drives past the building on 8th Street has seen the awning there that's along the sidewalk there. For that awning to be removed, they have to be sure that all of the sandstone bricks in the building are secure. So that's one of the next things that they need to do. The stained glass windows, which are just incredibly gorgeous. I had not really noticed them until I toured the building because typically when I'd been there before, it had been at night and I was maybe focused on the play I was going to see or the people I was with. But the stained glass windows are just remarkably
Mm,
beautiful, and Myron estimates that repairing them is going to cost roughly $250,000 or so. S That's a pretty big chunk of change that he has to spend. So he's kind of focused right now on some of those important next steps. And it's not entirely clear how much some of those next steps are going to cost. And even, for example, finding the sandstone is potentially going to be a challenge. So he feels like he has a number of tasks ahead of
hmm
him.
hmm of course, one thing everybody's interested in: what might become of the building? What are Myron's plans for it?
Well, Myron is really interested in what the community would like to see there. He envisions it being someplace that community members can go, and exactly what that looks like, he's not really
Hmm
1,000% clear about. And once again, it just goes back to the fact that he's accomplished so much, but there's a lot of other tasks that need to happen before it's really going to be viable for people even to maybe take tours on a regular basis. It's still inside the building, it's still very much a construction zone. There are ladders and scaffolds, but it's cleaned up quite a bit. He mentioned that he had taken numerous loads of carpet and just kind of garbagey things out of the building before he even got started with the regular work. One thing I want to be clear about is that Myron has said consistently that he hasn't really done the work. He's been directing the crew to do the work. And
hmm
once again, almost all of it is by hand.
Okay. Um, I I think one of the more amusing parts of the story you wrote about this was that one of Myron's crew members kind of heard some voices in the building. Is that right?
Yes, and that was something that they didn't share a lot of detail about. And you might have noticed Myron's quote that he's not really going to say one way or the other what his opinion is.
So, but it does perhaps add to some people's thoughts that who knows, maybe the Civic Theater is haunted. We have a man who was on the job who thought he heard something. So, whatever evidence that's worth.
Thought he heard something and then was not willing to continue working. So that tells me, or in my opinion, that means he was pretty frightened.
hmm
So,
So you got to go there. You got to tour it. You got to climb up into the ceiling, right?
mhm.
What was it like? Like you said, you've been there before, but this was a whole new angle of it. What was your impression of the place?
Well, I was really impressed by the space between the the ceiling and the roof. I had and actually as I was writing the story, I'd always thought about ceilings and roofs as almost synonyms. But in this case, I was standing on the ceiling and the roof was soaring
Uh,
40 feet above me. And then there's this system uh, of trusses that, once again, they all kind of look like the sides of bridges, and that had its own almost artistic
mm,
feel unto itself. So that was pretty incredible. That's one of the just the really kind of fun perks about my job, is that every now and then I get to see some of these things behind the scenes that, and actually really for me to do the writing that I did about the story, I really needed to see it. I didn't understand it just from having talked with Myron, and then Rod Schindler was one of the carpenters who helped him. And we had talked more than an hour about it, and I pretty much understood it, but actually seeing it in person really helped me be able to write about it in a way that made sense to our readers.
hmm one thing I noticed in one of the photos that our photographer Olivia Anderson took was the acoustic dome, which is something you saw when you were a theater goer there. But seeing it in her photo, it really is a striking feature, isn't it? It's beautiful, you know.
Oh, right. The combination of that acoustical dome with the stained glass windows. The photo that we ran on the front page of the Sunday newspaper, it really made me think of some Dutch paintings I
Yeah.
had seen, and I had never really equated the Civic Theater with that kind of art until I was looking at Olivia's photo, which I thought it was an incredible photo, but it also just helped reiterate for me what a gem this building is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, Elaine. If money and time were no object, what would you do with this building? What do you think is the best purpose for it? And this is just your take on it.
Well, I go back to what Rod Schindler said about the acoustics being great. He was the carpenter that we were talking about. And it seems to me like acoustics are something that, if they're there, that would be a great asset to build on. So a theater, a place where religious ceremonies take place, a place where there's concerts, it seems like that would be a great use of the building.
Hmm Well, very good. Can you think of anything else we should talk about with the castle?
I think we've covered the territory pretty well. This has been a fun conversation.
It has, and it was a great story. It was very interesting to learn about Myron, and you know, as we talked about, it seemed like the days were numbered for this building, and so I think, as you said, I think most people in town, or probably everybody, is pleased that, hey, this thing is. It looks like it's going to have another life again.
Exactly. I think that's really, really exciting.
Yeah. All right, Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Lewiston Tribune Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode, and we'll be back again next week with another new episode. Until then, have a great day. Thanks.